Joe Castiglione, Joe C, almost 30 years as the athletic director of Oklahoma. Stephen, there are athletic directors who may be more influential in the grand scheme of things in college athletics, but the list doesn't come to mind quickly. Not in the modern era, at least.
Yeah, I think just if you made a list of the best athletic directors in college football, I mean, Castiglione is either at the top of that list or near the top of that list. I think it's pretty impressive. His track record of longevity there at Oklahoma, he got there in 1998. And you think about all the changes that college football has gone through. I mean, BCS, the 14 playoff, 12-team playoff, Big 12 expansion, uncertainty, move to the SEC, not only all of the off the field, like administrative stuff, but the change in Oklahoma, like the hiring Bob Stoops, then to Lincoln Riley. Now the decision, the next AD, I guess we'll have to make will be on Brent Venables. But I think just in general, there's been a changing of the guard essentially in the sport the last couple of years. We've seen a lot of people who have been in college athletics for a long time retiring and moving on. And so Castiglione is kind of the next one. I'm fascinated also to see where Oklahoma goes and how this role might evolve in the new era of college football.
I mean, honestly, maybe the most influential at his school of anybody. Nobody was more influential on their school than Joe C was at Oklahoma. I mean, look at the athletics programs across the board. The women's softball program is just insanely successful, off the charts. Much to my 8-year-old softball playing Tennessee volunteer-hearted little girl who was very upset with the walk-off that Carlin Pickens gave up to Oklahoma. But people forget. It's fine. We move on.
I this is a random thing here, and I actually saw somebody with a Texas Tech softball jersey one day when I was out, and I was like, I don't think I would have seen that 10 years ago. Is that fair to say?
Well, they've never been to the College World Series.
Right. I know they invested heavily, but I'm saying, like, I don't remember seeing like many just softball jerseys. And
if you're talking about a softball jersey, I think it is the growth of the sport. Yes. Absolutely. If you're talking about a Texas Tech jersey, that is the $1 million they spent on Nigeri Kennedy to come to the team this year and have her come back again next year, which, oh, by the way, cost them another 7-figure contract. But softball, for people that do not know, the women's softball tournament gets higher TV ratings than the men's baseball College World Series. And this year, I want to say the Tennessee UCLA game that was a real crazy ending where the girl missed the home plate or whatever. It was super chaotic, but it was on a Sunday. Had more rate, like the viewership for the final was higher than the Stanley Cup final games 1, 2, and 3. Like women's softball beats the Stanley Cup final, which is an insane thing to think about. It's incredibly successful, and Oklahoma, a big part of that, of course, being a mainstay national champion in that sport. I just think my observation about Joe C is that he's the last of a dying breed, and I don't mean like actually dying. I mean like he's the last of a generation of type of athletic director who was there for 30 years, who would shepherd the organization through sort of smaller changes, but sort of had the same job by and large for most of the time. A lot of times they were former longtime head football coaches. Mm-hmm. You know, Barry Alvarez became the athletic director, and Frank Broyles at Arkansas became a really important athletic director after being a head coach. And that's sort of how the progression worked. That ain't the case anymore. You now have like shrewd business people who are part lawyer, part agent, part fundraiser, which is a very different skill set than, you know, when Barry Alvarez took over, and I think frankly when Joe C took over. But I'm curious what the role looks like 10 years from now, because of the general manager role being implemented underneath the AD, and some of those having control to hire and fire football coaches and manage the entire athletic. Like football is almost too big now that it needs its own like mini athletic director, which is what the general manager is kind of turning into. So it'll be interesting to see. Like, I just think these guys are like assistant coaches now, men and women. They just like, you get the job, you work there for 3 years, you implement some cool stuff, and then you move on to a bigger job. Like it's very much like an assistant coach, and not anymore like a guy or a woman who's been in the community for 30 years in different roles and kind of, you know, logically elevates to the top of the mountain, which it used to be the athletic director.
So where does this go from here? Like, do you think Oklahoma is the next Joe C at Oklahoma, the next athletic director? Do you think this role is significantly different? I mean, given that they have hired Jim Nagy, they've hired some other front office personnel. Keep in mind, there is a rather large football decision looming this year if they don't have a great year. So, I mean, does the AD still hold the same amount of power as they did before?
I mean, in general, I would say no, but I do think it's case by case. And like, I don't in Oklahoma, Joe C had the power over Jim Nagy.
Yeah.
But in the future, what will that role have? I don't think we know. And I think it is like Cal and Stanford might have different power structures than Alabama, or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think Greg Byrne makes decisions at Alabama around the football team for now. So it's drastically changed. And it does feel a little bit like the coaching. Like coaches are just like, God, this game is so different than it used to be. I don't want to be here anymore. And I could see athletic directors being like, I didn't have to worry about congressional settlements and revenue sharing agreements and the same kind of complaining about change and evolution that most people make when things that they love begin to change. And it just kind of is what it is. We're in a new frontier. And Joe C. is one of the last of this sort of lifer role that had the role for that long at one place. And it's just going to be very different, I think, in that role across the board, I think. So yeah. I don't know about Oklahoma specifically.
I think my working theory on this is ADs are still going to hold probably roughly about the same power, but I do think there is going to be a little bit shifted to the GMs and the front office types there. And also having those front office types is actually probably a good thing, because if you have a coaching change, you already have somebody that's entrenched in personnel and you can hit the ground running in the transfers, your roster. So it will be also like, is there some sort of like, does the GM hold some sway in whether the coach comes back? Like, are the GM and the head coach married together? So just a lot of fascinating power dynamics I think we're still trying to understand in this new era.
Yep, no question about it. A couple other pieces of news here. I guess